The Indianapolis Colts take on the Pittsburgh Steelers in Lucas Oil Stadium in a matchup that may determine which one of these teams gets into the playoffs. Who's going to come out on top? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here as always by my fellow writer and analyst at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. And for some of you, you may notice and may recognize the guy that's at the bottom of the screen here, a former Horseshoe Huddle alum, now doing his thing at Steelers Depot, our good friend Josh Carney. Josh, thanks a lot for being here, buddy. It's great to see you again, and just great to talk Colts football with you once again.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I got a little bit of chills there when you were introducing me. It's hard to hear alumni, but like I said off air, I'm so proud of what you guys are doing. We definitely started that thing from the bottom, and you and Jake and Drake and Zach have just really just taken off with it and doing a great job covering the Colts. And I looked forward to this opportunity. I know that I talked with Jake last year ahead of the Monday night game. And I figured at some point I'd be on one of the shows here on the network ahead of this one. So super thrilled to talk with you guys, and big game coming up Saturday.
Huge game. And I don't have the figures right in front of me, but I think it's pretty much like a 58% for the Colts if they win, 58% chance they get into the playoffs. Their chances go up. Steelers, I think it's like 49 to 50%. Mm-hmm. So Drake, this is a monster game, man. Playoff atmosphere going to be inside Lucas Oil Stadium on Sunday, and with the Colts going up against the team that they haven't been able to beat since 2008. Peyton Manning was still the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts the last time Indy beat Pittsburgh. A lot on the line on Saturday.
Yeah, and recent news updates, the Steelers team is actually pretty much back to full strength defensively, especially up front. So it's not going to be, a run through this type of, team game for the Colts. And also, I think that a lot of that brilliance is just on Mike Tomlin. Look, man, the guy just continues to win. He continues to sometimes take this team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, when they don't necessarily have maybe the talent in the past. He's just cruised them to winning records and playoff berths. So I think that it's been him, but man, he's got probably one of the most innovative minds that he's seen, the Colts have in a long time. So I think that's going to really make the matchup interesting. And you know what, exactly like was mentioned before, I think that this might be the biggest game of the year, especially if you talk about the implications right now for the Indianapolis Colts.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at the chat. And look, we've got another member of Horseshoe Huddle. It's just a big party of Horseshoe Huddle.
There it is.
As Jake Arthur's in the chat. Jake says he misses you, Josh. We all do.
Miss you guys
at Horseshoe Huddle. All our great times. But hey, we're all doing our thing, all continuing to climb, get success. It's been awesome. So appreciate Jake dropping in here. And then we got our first super chat of the evening from Patrick Rye, the CFO of Horseshoe Huddle. We call him that, Josh, because it seems like Patrick is the one that always gives us the most super chats. Without him, we wouldn't be able to do this, wouldn't be able to fund this. But Patrick, thank you so much for your super chat, buddy. He says, seen it all over X and Twitter recently, so I'll ask, Colts Pro Bowl selections, over or under 4.5? We'll answer this one before we dive into the matchup here. Let's just go around the horn. Drake, over or under 4.5 Pro Bowl selections for the Colts this year?
I think it's going to be under. I think it's going to be 4.
4? Okay. Yeah. Which 4 are you thinking?
I think Zaire Franklin. I think Michael Pittman. I think Bernard Ryman.
Ooh,
I think, let's see, what would one more be? You know what? Kenny Moore. Moore. I think those are 4. Maybe there's one more I'm not thinking of.
I think I'll probably go 3. I'm going to go 3 with Zaire. I think Pittman might be an alternate. I think Quentin Nelson sneaks in there like he does every year, and then Kenny Moore. So I think they'll probably be 3. What about you, Josh?
I was leaning 3 or 4. I didn't know if we were going to determine it on a legit selection or an alternate. If we're doing just Pro Bowlers in general, I think it's 4. And Andrew, I think you know where I'm about to go. My guy Zaire, man. Oh, covered him in college at Syracuse. He is so fun to watch. I'm so happy that he has gotten an opportunity the last few years. He was a tackling machine at Syracuse. He brought that edge. He's doing the same thing in Indianapolis. It is so fun to pop on that tape and watch that guy play downhill with just an absolute edge to his game. I hope, honestly, it's not going to happen, but I hope he gets some Defensive Player of the Year votes. I mean, you don't have 160 plus tackles with 4 weeks to go at this point in the NFL. It would not shock me if he gets to 200. I know he doesn't have the turnover numbers and all that, like, Darius Shaq Leonard used to have, but Zaire, man, just a great leader for that team. All week I've been studying the Colts, and he constantly pops on tape. So I hope he gets a Pro Bowl selection, and I really hope he gets some down ballot votes for Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah, A+ player on the field and an A++ human off the field.
Yes.
So I can't have enough positive things to say about Zaire Franklin. But Patrick, thank you so much for your super chat, buddy, getting us off on a really hot note this evening. And before we dive in, if you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night. Getting closer to 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. So guys, keep sharing away. Let's get to that mark before the end of the regular season. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. So boys, let's dive right into it. The Colts are 1.5 point favorites over the Steelers. I think that's probably because they're at Lucas Oil Stadium. So Vegas thinks this is basically a toss-up game. And honestly, I agree. This game could go either way. It's all so dependent on how certain players perform, what kind of matchups we get. This is going to be an ultimate test. And where we're going to start out tonight is with maybe what the biggest matchup of the game, where it's going to be the pass rush of the Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt, cleared concussion protocol. Alex Highsmith, cleared concussion protocol. Cam Hayward, healthy and ready to go, going up against Gardner Minshew, who has really struggled against the pressure this season. So Josh, I'm going to start out with you. How big is it to really have those guys back into the fold, all healthy, ready to go? And really, what's the difference for the Steelers defense if those guys weren't on the field?
I think it's huge to have them back. In that classic 3-4 defense that the Steelers run, they talk all the time about how the main key cog of that defense is the outside linebacker position, because they are the key pass rushers. They can drop into coverage. They can allow the Steelers to do a ton of things defensively. And, we saw last year when TJ Watt missed, 6 or 7 games with the partially torn pec, they were a completely different defense. I think they are 1-7 or 1-9 without TJ Watt in his career, which you don't want to put too much credence into that because it is a defensive player. It's not a quarterback or anything like that. But, I mean, that's eye-opening. So to get not only him back, but get Alex Highsmith, who was cleared today on Thursday as well, is massive. I mean, the Steelers have done a good job this season building up the depth behind them. They have rookie Nick Herbig out of Wisconsin, who's flashed a bit. They've got veteran Marcus Golden, as the fourth option there. So they had guys, but there's nobody like TJ Watt. And Alex Highsmith might not have the sack numbers this year, but he's got 51 pressures. I think that's 4th or 5th in the league at the position. I mean, they just know how to rush the quarterback. So having them back is huge. The key with them is this is going to sound cliche, but this is how it is with this defense. They have got to stop the run. They have struggled with it this year. They've been better since Cameron Hayward has been back after he had groin surgery early in the season. But if they don't stop the run consistently and put the opposing offense behind the chains, a 2nd and long, a 3rd and long, they're in trouble, because that allows opposing offenses to use the quick game in the passing game. Gardner Minshew does a really good job of that. And when opposing offenses use the quick game, guess what that does? That slows down the pass rush. It doesn't allow them to get home. It doesn't allow them to impact the game. And we've seen that here the last, 5-6 weeks. Offenses have shown how to beat the Steelers defense. And it's that quick game. The ball is out in 2.2 seconds or less. And I don't care if you've got Reggie White on the other side of the ball. You're not getting to a quarterback in 2.2 seconds or less. So they've got to come out, stop the run. And that starts with Watt and Highsmith on the edge. You stop the run, you put them in disadvantageous down and distances, then you can pin your ears back. So it's massive that they got those guys back, especially against a good Colts offensive line. But you don't stop the run, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Right. And Drake, I'm going to ask you this. I mean, Braden Smith out for this matchup. Another day for Bernard Ryman on the left side. Don't really worry about him too much. He's been pretty solid outside of last week against Trey Hendrickson. But Blake Freeland is the one to watch in all of this. Now, when Freeland has gotten better throughout the year, it's still you're still a lot more comfortable with Braden Smith out there. As we have 2 super chats from Logan Schmidt. Want to make sure we get those out there. His first one, thank you so much, Logan. He says Colts whoop the Steelers 27-13. That's a bold prediction right there. I don't think it'll be that big, but the confidence. If you know Logan, this man is always going to be the biggest supporter of the Colts. And I love this one right here. This one's going to give us some comedic relief. TJ beats Daddy Raymond and gets held in check. Another big prediction. Daddy Raymond. Is that a new nickname that we need to start around Colts Twitter? But
put it on a shirt.
Exactly.
Daddy Raymond.
I love that. Love that. Thank you so much, Logan, for all your support, buddy. You're an absolute legend. You're a GOAT. We really do appreciate it. But Drake, what do you think? Blake Freeland and Bernard Ryman versus TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. And Josh pointed it out. The sack numbers really aren't there for Highsmith this year, but the pressures are. And you turn on the film, man, Alex Highsmith is an absolute monster at that edge rushing position. So Drake, what do these Colts tackles need to do? And then more importantly, how do you think Minshew handles the pressure on Saturday?
Man, it's honestly, if on paper, it's just not a really good matchup for Gardner Minshew. Okay, now here's the thing: is Ryman has played absolutely fantastic football up until last week. I think that Hendrickson really just put him on a turnstile. I think it was just a bad game for everybody. But here's what I think: if I'm Mike Tomlin or if I'm the Steelers, I'm putting Highsmith over with Ryman as much as possible, and I'm putting Watt over with Freeland because you absolutely have to double team him, or you have to have the running back over on his side at all times. So that's already compensating. Your offense has to compensate something for this guy already. Okay, so I think you're going to see pressure on Minshew. I don't think he's going to react well to it at times. However, I do think that you're going to go into this game plan as Indianapolis, or if you're the Colts, you have to go into this game plan with some sort of way to. I would say you're not going to stop. You're just not going to stop Watt at all. Okay, you just have to try to contain him, keep him from destroying your entire offensive game plan. So I think that to what Josh said, they've struggled against the run. I think that you have to attack with the run. You've had 2 awful games with the ground attack. I think this is a prime matchup. But then again, you've got guys like Larry Ogunjobi, Keanu Benton, who actually put pressure on the quarterback as well. And TJ Watt. I mean, hell, he's got 65 pressures, which is insane. So. Man, if they let Watt get back there too much, here's what I'll say. If they let him get back there too much, you're going to see Minshew just absolutely start seeing ghosts and struggle. If they can contain him and keep him in the backfield at a pretty decent pace, because he's just going to do it. He's going to get back there. I think that you have a chance, especially if the ground game gets going, to kind of relieve some of that pressure and maybe make those short completions a reality and, relax that defense a bit.
Blake Freeland has definitely been thrown into the fire this season. I mean, he's had the matchup of Aaron Donald. He's gone up against Myles Garrett, Brian Burns, Trey Hendrickson this year, among others. And now to have TJ Watt, I mean, there's the iron sharpens iron is the perfect saying for this. So going up against the best pass rushers that the NFL has to offer. But you guys both mentioned it, getting the run game going. Now Jonathan Taylor will not be out there, missing the 3rd straight game with that thumb injury. It's the Zach Moss show once again. And Drake, you alluded to it. Zach Moss, the past couple games against the Titans and against the Bengals, we've really seen him take a step back. Hasn't been the Zach Moss that we saw with the Colts earlier this season. And when you take that into account, that's put a lot more pressure on Gardner Minshew. Turned out okay against Tennessee. They were able to come out with the victory, but when they turned one-dimensional against the Cincinnati Bengals, they really couldn't keep up. So Josh, I want to. You talked about Cam Hayward being there, and that's helped shore up things for the Steelers' run defense. But what has been the main issue? Why haven't they been able to really stop the run this year on a defense that typically historically has been pretty good against the run?
Honestly, it comes down to missed tackles. I mean, this group in the last few weeks has struggled from a tackling perspective, and quite honestly, here in Pittsburgh, it gets a little old hearing about how the players just have to execute. But really, it comes down to execution. Getting off blocks, being in the right spot. It takes run defense is all 11 guys, and you get one guy that's off assignment or out of a gap, you're going to have a home run play. And we've seen that all season long with the Steelers. Obviously, with Hayward back, that's kind of gotten cleaned up a bit. But for the most part, I think I would pin it on missed tackles. And you've got some guys that just aren't playing up to the level of expectations. I mean, Larry Ogunjobi got a big deal in the offseason as a free agent. I think he got 3 years, $30-some million. Hasn't really done anything. The Steelers have been decimated at inside linebacker with injuries. I mean, they're on their 4th and 5th string guys at this point. That's hard to play with. It's really hard to play with. If you don't have high level, off-ball linebacker play in today's NFL, you're in trouble. But just being in the right spot, knowing your assignment, getting off blocks. It sounds simple, and really it is, but it's easier said than done. And they've struggled with it. They've cleaned it up a little bit. But they did have some issues last week against the Patriots. I know Ezekiel Elliott had a really nice night, had a couple of nice runs late in the game, and then that Sunday before against the Cardinals, I mean, boy, James Conner just really took it to them in the second half. He closed it out with a 6-minute offense there in the fourth quarter. So this Colts team worries me. They've got really athletic offensive linemen. They've got the nasty guys in the trenches. Quentin Nelson against Cam Hayward is going to be one hell of a matchup to watch throughout the game Saturday. And tell you what, I've been really happy to see Zach Moss kind of take advantage of his opportunity. Loved him coming out of Utah. I thought in that draft class he was in the argument for running back 1. That guy's contact balance and elusiveness is something to see. And really, quite honestly, the Steelers are good for 2 explosive runs a game, it feels like at this point. And if we've seen anything, and I know you guys have seen it up close all season long, but if we've seen anything from Zach Moss this year, he can be a home run hitter. He just needs one crease. And I know he's struggled the last few weeks, but he's getting a good matchup coming here because Pittsburgh, for historically, as you mentioned, Andrew, has been a good run defense. Last few years, though, it's just I can't pinpoint what it is, and I don't think the Steelers can at this point either. But they struggle in certain matchups, and they get bitten by 1 or 2 mistakes in big spots, and next thing you know, those are ending up in the end zone. So yeah, Hayward's been a nice addition back into the lineup, but you've got some guys that are just kind of in over their head and not playing up to par. So it's a tough one to answer, but whatever that answer may be, they are not good against the run right now.
And Zach Moss has definitely made himself some money this season. Expected to be a free agent. We'll see if he is cheap enough for the Colts to retain him, even though we've got Jonathan Taylor on that huge deal. But my guess would be is Zach Moss gets an opportunity to be the top dog elsewhere. But Drake, this is, I mean, Josh is kind of echoing some of my thoughts coming into this game. This is a chance for Zach Moss to really have a bounce back game, and I think if the Colts can do that, if they can really rely on Zach Moss to move the change, get 4 to 5 yards per carry, stay ahead of that so you don't force Gardner Minshew into 3rd and 9, 3rd and 8 situations, then the Colts could probably have something on offense. What do you think?
I'm right there with you. And look, that's how you ease the pass rush. That's how you keep guys like Watt away, and keep them doing different things other than just an outright pass rush, is by running the ball well and then using play action, out of running the ball well. So the last couple of games, you just haven't seen that. And look, at the end of the day, and Josh, this. I mean, you've seen guys like Rudolph out there, playing plenty of Pittsburgh Steelers football. A backup quarterback, high level or low level, they're a backup quarterback. That's really what it is at the end of the day. So I think I've had this conversation with Andrew before, unless it's a guy like Jameis Winston, who's explosive and while he could throw 4 touchdowns and just really go toe to toe with anyone, he could also throw 4 interceptions against the league's worst defense. So most of these guys are what they are. And Minshew is a safe thrower. He's a guy that's dink and dunk. He doesn't usually like to take downfield shots. You got to have a ground game, especially with that kind of athleticism on the Steelers defense. And you know, I've talked about the guys in the secondary too. Joey Porter Jr. You've got guys like Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got guys that they can still make plays. You start forcing a guy like Minshew, who struggles with pressure this season, to throw the ball too much. Well, one of those guys could really make him pay. I know Joey Porter Jr. hasn't had all the interceptions that maybe Steelers fans had wanted, but he's still good. He's still good for one hell of a play if you give him an opportunity. So I think you got to get the ground game going. I think it's maybe the number one priority for the offense.
Well, that's good. That's a good segue, Dre. Well, before we do that, Stats Matt says he's arrived finally. He told me that he was going to be late today because he had to go to his daughter's Christmas program. Like, what are you doing, buddy? Priorities. Horseshoe Huddle Podcast takes priorities, man. Good to see. Good to see you, buddy. As always. But good segue there, Drake, because getting that pass game going, I think, is working off the run. Gardner Minshew's still going to have to make plays, and the guy that's probably going to make most of those plays, Michael Pittman Jr., the guy who now has 6 consecutive games with 8+ catches for the Colts. Just been on an insane run. The consistency, and I wrote about this earlier in the week. Shane Steichen talked about Pittman's consistency and how it's infectious and it's rubbing off on the rest of this offense, and he's becoming a legitimate threat in this league, not only just among Colts fans who I think know what Pittman's been about for a couple seasons now, but he's starting to get that national attention. So going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary, Joey Porter Jr. has been a hell of a rookie, very physical cornerback. Obviously, you have Minkah Fitzpatrick back there as a safety, one of the best in the NFL. Drake, do you think Michael Pittman continues this run? Do you think he's going to be the main focal point of this offense against the Steelers, or are we going to see someone else get involved? We're going to see Steichen and Gardner Minshew kind of go in a different direction on Saturday.
You know, until proven otherwise, I have to say yes. I mean, because there's been a couple of these games where I'm like, oh, he's going to drop off. He's going to have under like 5 or 6 catches. And like you said, 6 straight games with 8+ catches. He's got 53 in that span. I mean, he's on an absolute tear, and this guy's doing it with Gardner Minshew. So, I mean, I do think he's going to be the focal point. Pittsburgh, even though those guys are athletic, the guys that we mentioned before, they are, I wouldn't say bad against the pass, but they're like probably like about middle of the pack, or maybe on the lower end of middle of the pack against the pass. So at the end of the day, though, the Colts are limited because of Gardner Minshew's abilities. So that, given TJ Watt coming back, and that given Alex Highsmith, all those guys being there, guys like Cam Hayward. Man, again, if you don't get the ground game going, that passing defense can get better, okay, because they don't have to worry about as much. So I do think at the end of the day, though, I think Michael Pittman's going to probably – there might be a chance he doesn't get 8+ catches, but I do think he's going to make an impact. I'd say probably 5 or 6, because Mike Tomlin's going to figure out some kind of way to try to limit him. I just think Minshew's going to have to go to other targets.
Last year against the Steelers, Pittman had 7 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown in that loss for the Colts. Thank you to another super chat from Truitt. Thank you so much for your super sticker. Truitt is able to join us. I know he wasn't feeling well earlier, and there he is with his comment. I'm here, men, looking to get off the DL. Hope you're feeling a little bit better, Truitt. You were a little bit under the weather earlier this week, because we're going to need your support. The Colts are going to need your support on Saturday against the tough Steelers team. Thank you so much. But Josh, I wanted to ask you kind of just to elaborate on the Steelers secondary. I think last week we saw the Steelers against the Patriots. They were really susceptible to getting hit over the middle of the field. And has that been the norm for the Steelers team, or has because typically you're talking about the run defense being the weakness, but on the outside it seems like the Steelers have been doing pretty well in the secondary.
Yeah, I think with the injuries at the safety position, obviously Minkah Fitzpatrick just recently came back. Keanu Neal's down on IR right now. They're kind of smoke and mirrors at this point. DeMonte Casey is a really solid veteran, but he was burned for a touchdown last week, taking an awful angle, on a corner route to Hunter Henry for a touchdown. They're just... Outside of Joey Porter at the cornerback position and Minkah at safety, I think this group is one of the worst in the league. They are a serious problem. Patrick Peterson was an interesting signing after they lost Cameron Sutton in free agency. He's played better as of late, but still is not that impactful guy they were hoping for. Levi Wallace, I mean, boy, you can just go after him all game long if you wanted to. He's been a mess all season. I do think, honestly, this is going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest test of the season for Joey Porter Jr. I think he's going to draw Pittman. He's matched up against number ones since he went into the starting lineup against the Jaguars. He's more than held his own overall. He had some struggles against Amari Cooper. He shut down Jamar Chase a few weeks ago. But Michael Pittman Jr., man, like you guys mentioned, he's on a run right now, and I think the Steelers are going to try and do what they can to take him away. But it's really pick your poison with this secondary. You go after Porter, you're not going to have much success. He's allowed, I think, 17 receptions all year on 40-some targets. Like his numbers are true lockdown number one type corner numbers right now, which
those are fantastic.
Yeah, which is remarkable to say because the Steelers haven't had that in a decade and a half since probably Ike Taylor. But man, everything else outside of Porter and Fitzpatrick is bad, and I really am concerned about matchups like, Patrick Peterson on Alec Pierce and Levi Wallace having to deal with Josh Downs at times. But yeah, if you want to circle one area of the field that the Colts are going to have a ton of success with Saturday, middle of the field and tight ends. That's where the Steelers, since they lost Terrell Edmonds in free agency last offseason, they've had no answer for tight ends. I mean, Trey McBride went off a few weeks ago. Hunter Henry had 2 touchdowns last week for the Patriots. It's just constant. Last season, Andrew, you mentioned Michael Pittman Jr. had 7 for 61. I think Jelani Woods had like 8 or 9 catches for 90-some yards. Sure wish he was healthy. But, this could be a big week for Will Mallory. He's come on strong recently for the Colts. Been interesting to watch. But middle of the field, I don't know what it is. Obviously the injuries at linebacker have really hurt them. You're getting Michael Walker, on guys, and it's not working at all. So middle of the field is going to be where they attack, and this secondary is largely a mess. But if I were to caution Gardner Minshew, just be careful targeting Joey Porter Jr. right now, because he's on a heater, and I wish they could put an ISO cam on Porter against Pittman, because that, to me, you want to talk about 2 physical guys that are just monsters at the catch point and love to get after it. That's going to be one hell of a matchup. And I'm curious to see what they do with Minka. He talked earlier this week about the tight ends, and, he said pretty clearly, yeah, don't let them catch the ball. Well, how do you do that? Are you going to put Minka on Will Mallory? Like, I don't think that's a fair thing for the Steelers to do, to take your best defender and put him on a tight end who's had 9 catches in the last 3 weeks. Because it opens up everything else. I mean, Alec Pierce, he had the 2 deep balls against the Titans. Didn't really do much against the Bengals, but I think he's coming on a bit. Minshew has a little more trust in him. And yeah, like I mentioned earlier, guys, Josh Downs scares me. That guy after the catch is pretty good. He's made some big time catches this year. He's got great hands. That's a guy that I have no idea how the Steelers are going to match up with him, because Patrick Peterson isn't the answer in the slot. James Pierre, he's the number 4 corner. He's not an answer. Chandon Sullivan, not an answer. So this secondary is rough. And going back to our previous talking point, you can't stop the run. It opens up play action, and boy, oh boy, the Steelers vulnerable there. So long-winded answer. I think the Steelers secondary is bad outside of 2 names. And I know Minshew's not played well, but This is a week where I think he could have a lot of success trying to take some shots downfield like he did against the Titans.
Let's take a look at the chat here and see what some people are saying. CMDSR says, I'm looking for Will the Thrill Mallory to have a big game, and that could be in line there, buddy. Logan Schmidt saying that Josh Downs is going off, so that very well could be as well. And then we got 2 questions from Stats Matt that I think are really good here. Stats Matt says, so over the middle, is there weakness or is it twitchy, guys? So like the Downs versus Wallace matchup. And then Stats Matt also asks, Josh, do the Steelers cornerbacks travel?
So I'll answer that one first. Yes, recently Joey Porter Jr. has been traveling with the opponent's number one. Again, it also depends on game situation and all that, what package the Steelers are in. But typically, Porter, since that Thursday night game against the Tennessee Titans back in Week 9, has been on the number one guy consistently. Again, teams have got a little creative with motions and moving them away and using bunch formations, stack formations to get free releases. But for the most part, Porter has been traveling against number ones, which has been really encouraging. As far as over the middle goes, I don't think it's anything about, twitched up guys or great athletes. I just think that they are struggling significantly to handle tight ends, whether it's, delayed out routes or, kind of those benders over the middle, those over routes. They just don't have the linebackers to run with those guys right now. And it's showing up big time. It really is. And what was the other one? The Downs versus Wallace.
Yeah, Downs versus Wallace.
I don't think that's going to be the matchup, at least based on what I've watched the last few weeks with the Colts. It feels like Downs is more of that slot receiver. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, you're going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson on Downs, because when they go into their certain sub package, whether it's nickel or dime, Peterson is the slot corner in dime. If it's nickel, you're going to see Chandon Sullivan, just because of his ability to blitz off the edge. You might see Peterson rotate, kind of that single high when they move Minka around. But overall, I think you're going to see more of Downs on Peterson. And to me, that is a great matchup for the Colts, because, I mean, if we're being fair, Patrick Peterson has lost a step or two and isn't that twitched up, sticky coverage guy that he once was. So, that's a matchup that really, really scares me, because we've seen guys run away from Peterson this year, especially on crossing routes, and he's struggled. So it'll be up to Minshew to take advantage of that.
And Downs is the quick win wide receiver
Yes.
in Shane Steichen's offense. So that could be an area that Steichen looks to exploit. Let's switch gears here and let's start talking about the Steelers offense versus the Colts defense. And this one is also a very intriguing matchup, and it could go either way. Drake, last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, pass rush was nowhere really to be found, coming off of 3 straight games where they had over 5 sacks, 0 sacks, hardly any pressures on Jake Browning, and Browning was able to carve up the Colts defense going right down the field. I think that's got to change this week, going up against Mitch Trubisky and the Steelers offensive line that at times has struggled. I think, and I think they've improved a little bit, still not where they want to be. So what are you expecting out of this Colts pass rush on Saturday, especially the 2 guys on the outside, talking about Kwity Paye, Samson Ebukam?
They didn't have any sacks, all right, and they went into that game being the second team in the NFL as far as sacks were concerned. So I think that you're going to see success, but I think that it's going to be a little different than what a lot of people might be just assuming, because Pittsburgh has struggled in this area. But I do think that they're going to run the ball consistently. I think Pittsburgh has got, it's Jaylen Warren, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so they're a forgotten duo, but they can absolutely play ball, and especially if they get a lot of momentum, him and Najee Harris, they can make things happen. So I think Pittsburgh with Mitch Trubisky under center, they're going to be running the ball a lot, but I think that you are going to see at least, I would say, 3 sacks. I don't think you're going to bounce back to 6 like before, but I do think that the Colts are going to get at least 3 sacks, and I think that you may see a nice healthy balance of maybe like Ebukam with 1, Paye with 1, and I do think DeForest Buckner is going to get 1 too.
Now, Josh, Mitch Trubisky hasn't played too much this year, but he did play some last year before Kenny Pickett took over. How have you seen him be able to adapt to pressure since he's been into a Pittsburgh Steelers uniform? I know he tends to hold the ball for quite a bit of time, which I think can definitely play into the Colts' hands here. But how do you think Trubisky's going to fare on Saturday?
I tell you what, he is the same quarterback he was when he was a rookie in Chicago. This guy that shows flashes. He'll stand in there against the pressure at times. He'll go through his progressions. He'll make a strong throw. And then there are other times where he just completely loses his mind against the pressure, drifts back far in the pocket, makes it harder and harder for his offensive linemen, throws off his back foot, throws into triple coverage. I think he's a solid veteran leader in that locker room. And right now there's a lot of questions about Pittsburgh's culture, thanks to Ben Roethlisberger, in recent days. But I just don't think Trubisky is a starting quarterback in this league at this point. And, there's been debates on if Mason Rudolph should get a shot at this point. I'm not opposed to that. I think we know what Trubisky is. He's a guy that's going to be aggressive. He's going to take some downfield shots, but he's going to make a lot of mistakes, and he's going to take some sacks, and he's going to run into some sacks. And behind that offensive line that is good at run blocking, but has a lot of issues pass blocking, I think this is going to be a tough matchup for Trubisky, especially coming off the Patriots game where, he made some mistakes. He had 4 turnover-worthy plays in that game. He had 1 interception called back due to a penalty, had 2 others dropped. Could have been way worse. And the Colts tend to finish those plays, especially Kenny Moore. So I'm worried about it. And with Trubisky under center, I don't have a lot of faith in the Steelers offense at this point. I think we've seen, though, in the last couple years, it doesn't matter what quarterback's under center in this offensive scheme. It's just not good enough. It's not an NFL level modern day offensive scheme. Matt Canada was fired right before Thanksgiving. The Steelers had that 1 game boost that teams typically have after a coach is fired, and then it's been back to normal. And they want to be aggressive with Trubisky. They're trying to build around that aggressiveness a little bit. But it's some of it is just so puzzling. Like, I don't know if you guys looked at the tape yet from this past Thursday, but 4th and 2 near midfield, you need 2 yards to sustain a drive. You're down a field goal. What do the Steelers do? They throw a deep shot to Deontay Johnson, a low percentage deep shot that falls incomplete, and they essentially lose the game. I mean, that's the Steelers' offense in a nutshell. There is no rhyme or reason to it, especially in the passing game, and everything just feels so backwards with them from an offensive philosophy. With Trubisky, they want to get something going. George Pickens has been kind of upset again this week. He's been in the news here locally for his attitude and frustrations, and I think they're going to try and force the ball to him. And anytime you say Mitch Trubisky and force the football, it worries me. I think he's going to have a tough time against this defense. Gus Bradley has played against him before, has schemed up well against him before. Yeah, I think they're going to put him in situations that aren't to his advantage and force him to make some plays. And I mean, look, we're year 7 with Trubisky at this point. I think he is who he is. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to flash occasionally, but the flash is not enough compared to the mistakes he's made. So I'm very worried about this matchup. I don't have a lot of faith. And quite honestly, I wouldn't have had a lot of faith if Kenny Pickett was the quarterback either. The Steelers just don't have a guy in the scheme right now that they currently have that's going to elevate them offensively.
And you talked about those deep shots. Stats Matt coming in here with some heat. Hey, Josh, can you tell the Steelers to keep throwing 20-yard go routes in 3rd and 2s? And then Matt, he also says it's almost Christmas. Let Rudolph guide the sleigh. Stats Matt coming out with some heaters today in the chat. Love to see it. But you talked about that the Steelers offensive line does a lot better when they're run blocking. And the Colts have kind of struggled against the run. They do have Grover Stewart back, and when Grover Stewart was in against the Bengals, it certainly helped. However, it seemed like as soon as Grover Stewart would come out for a play or two, Zach Taylor would say, okay, whoever came in for Grover Stewart, let's run directly at him. Most of the time, it was Taven Bryan. So what do you think do you think the Steelers offense is gonna really focus on trying to run the ball with that 2-headed monster of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren? I know Najee's more of the bruiser in the backfield, and Jaylen Warren, you can use him as a pass down back as well. He's had some explosive plays this year. How do you think the Steelers running game is going to fare against this Colts defense?
Well, I'll tell you what, last year they were fantastic against them. I mean, Benny Snell came in last year in relief of Najee Harris and had, I think, 60 or 70 yards. I think you can run on this team. The Steelers' identity even though they don't really know what it is at this point, it's pretty clear it's a run-heavy, power rushing attack. They're at their best offensively when everything revolves around the run, whether it's duo or, pulling the guards, pulling the tackles, getting up in between the tackles. If it's under center, good chance the Steelers are running the football and they're going to have success. When they're in gun and they try and run the football, it's a mess because they don't have those running backs that are the quick twitch, one cut and go, like you see some other teams around the league. But yeah, this group gets after it in the run game. There's a little bit of nastiness to it. I think Broderick Jones, the rookie, him stepping into the lineup at right tackle helped transform this run game. He was a significant upgrade over Chukwuma Okorafor at right tackle in the run game. Dan Moore Jr. for all his warts, in pass protection. The guy is a people mover in the run game. Like, he creates a ton of movement, a ton of push, a ton of displacement up front in the trenches. But the big key for me this week is Isaac Seumalo, left guard, is questionable. Did not practice all week with a shoulder injury. Yeah, he played on the short week last week against the Patriots after leaving the game against the Cardinals. But to see him not practice at all this week, I don't think he's going to go. And if he doesn't, that puts Nate Herbig into the lineup. He's flashed at times. He's a very good run blocker, but I think you can really exploit him in pass protection. So, yeah, I think it really comes down to game script and how it turns out early in the game. If the Steelers come out early, are able to establish the run, are able to keep it close within one possession, I think you're going to see them be able to run the football and stay true to who they are. But if you let the Colts get out to a quick start like they have allowed the Cardinals and the Patriots in recent weeks, that takes away the entire game script. It changes who the Steelers are entirely, and they have shown they cannot come from behind by 2 or more scores. And in Pittsburgh, you hear a lot of people trying to make excuses of like what teams can come back from multiple scores. Well, a lot of modern day offenses can do that. The Steelers can't. So if you stop the run or at least put them, down by a score or two, you'll change what they want to be. And if they get away from the run, they have no shot. I think Najee is going to be the guy who's going to hammer it between the tackles, try and set the tone on Saturday, really come out and try and punch the Colts in the mouth. And then you're going to have Jalen be that change of pace guy and, try and rip off some explosive runs. But Grover being back, I know he was just trying to get his feet underneath him last week, but him being back and up to speed, man, that guy changes a run defense, just like Cam Hayward for the Steelers changed the run defense for Pittsburgh. So I like the offensive line in the run game in general, but pass protection-wise, I mean, you guys mentioned they didn't have any sacks last week, but I think they're going to get quite a few this week. Ebicom and Kwity Paye off the edge. That speed, I really think they'll give fits to Moore and Broderick Jones. Broderick Jones is moving from left tackle at Georgia to now he's at right tackle. You know how difficult that is to try and do on the fly. He's played well, but in recent weeks he has had serious issues with speed off the edge, especially when they do that wide 9. Gus Bradley likes to do that. You get Ebicom and Kwity Paye out there on the wide 9, let them tee off against Broderick. It could be a long day. And I don't mean to be so negative here, but I mean, I've watched an offense the last 3 years set back modern football, it feels like. I mean, the Steelers went, 58 games without a 400-yard game?
It's nuts in today's NFL.
Yeah,
that's crazy. And they just won a bunch.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing is that they, up until these last 2 weeks, they had like the second most wins in the AFC in the last 5 years. Jeez. And they had no legitimate offense to speak of. Wow. I think this is a tough matchup. I really like what Indianapolis has in the front 7. I like the secondary. I'm very curious to see Juju Brents up close. I liked that guy a ton coming out. I thought he was going to be a Steeler. I'm glad he landed it in Indianapolis if it wasn't Pittsburgh. I love Gus Bradley's scheme, and I like that matchup of him against interim OC Eddie Faulkner and play caller Mike Sullivan. Like, you come down to X's and O's, I'm going to take Gus Bradley over a lot of offensive coordinators.
And it's funny you mentioned Juju Brents. This I think, if all things considered, you talk about how they can have success in the running game. The secondary for the Indianapolis Colts is still so young. Juju Brent's coming back this week, the first time he's played since week 7. You're talking about that, and with Jalen Jones on the other side. Drake, I'm gonna see what you think about this. But what do you think, as we get another super chat here talking about Juju? Shaheen, thank you so much for your super chat, buddy. Really, really appreciate it. Hey, you joined late, but at least you're here. That's all that matters. So Shaheen says, breaking the curse this year, Juju is our X factor. So Shaheen already getting his X factor in there early. So Drake, what do you think? Going up against wide receivers to Deontay Johnson, who maybe hasn't performed like in the past as of late, but I still think he's a solid wide receiver. George Pickens, as Josh said, they might be trying to feed him the ball to appease him. He certainly didn't look happy against the Patriots, and seems like he's had some attitude issues the Steelers have had to deal with. What do you think? Johnson and Pickens against this young secondary of the Indianapolis Colts, and I want to throw Freiermuth in there as well. I mean, they've got some weapons throughout.
Yeah, Pat Freiermuth really doesn't get talked about enough. I think he kind of reminds me a lot of Jack Doyle. Honestly, he's just a real solid blocker, and the guy just makes things happen. I think
that's a great comp. That is a great comp.
There's just been a lot of, shakiness at quarterback. So I think that he can still make things happen. And look, I understand that Pickens hasn't exactly had the best time this year, and Johnson struggled up to what he's usually holding his standard to. But look, the Colts, yes, they at times have shown a real spark. These young guys have. Guys like Jones are out there, draping guys like DeAndre Hopkins all game, guys like Jamar Chase. I mean, he's getting his lumps just like Blake Freeland is on the other side of the ball. But I also think at the end of the day, yes, I mean, Deontay Johnson is a burner. He is a guy that if you lose one step on him, you're done. And George Pickens is still George Pickens, and he still is the George Pickens that showed the highest of highs, as a Pittsburgh wide receiver in an offense that hasn't really fit him very well. Okay, so any given moment, here's the thing about incidences like what's going on in Pittsburgh. It just takes one talking. It just takes one game where a guy gets back to square one. He gets back to where he needs to be, and he tees off. So this cannot be taken lightly. You can't just assume that there's going to be problems, man. It's Mike freaking Tomlin. This guy has just drugged these teams to the playoffs and drug them to constant winning records. I don't think he's had a losing record yet, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like you're just looking at this guy, and all he does is figure it out. So don't put it past Mike Tomlin to come into this game very fired up, very, having his guys fired up and ready to go, especially in enemy territory.
Drake's really high on Mike Tomlin. I know some Pittsburgh Steelers fans aren't so high on Mike Tomlin.
I just respect the guy a lot because all he's done is win.
Listen, it is refreshing to hear an outside perspective, because I feel like I'm in an echo chamber at times where it's like my mentions are fire Mike Tomlin. Tomlin's got to go. Tomlin stinks. So tired of hearing about the non-losing seasons. It's like, guys, this fan base in Pittsburgh is so incredibly spoiled because you have not gone through a 4-12 season since I think the 80s. Mm-hmm. If that, like, I don't think the Steelers have ever had a 4-12. I think the worst was 6-10 under Bill Cowher. So, like, yeah, they haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Yes, Tomlin has a playoff win in 4 of his 16 years at the helm, going on 17. We get it. But this guy is so well respected around the league. Players love him. Opposing coaches respect the hell out of him. Like, I get sometimes things just have to end. All good things come to an end, that whole saying. But man, I would rather have that guy as my head coach than going out into the unknown at this point. And I know I'm kind of harping on it here. I don't want to make it Steelers centric, but like this franchise is in a transition. Their GM of 22 years, Kevin Colbert, retired 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. You've given the new GM and Omar Khan a season and a half to overhaul the roster that had a ton of holes after Colbert retired. Ben Roethlisberger is going to go into the Hall of Fame in a couple years. as a first ballot guy. He was there for 18 seasons. You don't just snap your fingers and go, all right, we're good. We got the next guy. Like, it takes a while. I mean, look at the Colts. Andrew Luck walked away, and what was it now? 5 starting quarterbacks in 5 years, or 6 and 6. I think they have the guy in Richardson, but you guys went through Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz. That was a rough year. It's just, it's not easy. It's not easy to find that guy. And the Colts have gone through stability issues at head coach. I think they have the guy now in Steichen, but it's not easy, man. And it's refreshing to hear that respect from the outside is still there for Tomlin, because I tell you what, if the Steelers ever decided to part ways with him, or he wanted to go elsewhere, he'd have a job in 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Hall of Fame coach. And, it's not as bad as Belichick up in New England. I mean,
hey, the Colts possibly sent that man into either retirement or got him fired. But hey, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, I heard Jeff Saturday's available if you'd rather have that.
He's always ready.
He's always
ESPN
ready.
Gig, it's part-time.
What a time that was. I'm so glad, though, that they found Steichen. Just someone take away Irsay's Twitter, please.
I mean, it would certainly allow us to have some free evenings once in a while if Irsay wasn't tweeting things out at 11:30 p.m. as I'm trying to wind down. Let's talk about X factors here. So, Drake, I want you to give me an X factor for the Colts that you think is going to be crucial to their victory, and then Josh, give me a Steelers player as your X factor that you think is going to make the difference in this game. So, Drake, we'll start with you, bud.
Okay, so I mean, there's always so many guys that could come to mind here, but I gotta say Zach Moss. That's pretty much like that's the battering ram that's going to open up the offense. All right, Gardner Minshew, again, he's limited. He's a backup. Got to get that ground game going. You've had 2 awful performances. I think it's like 78 yards or something like that over the last couple games. So got to get the ground game going. It's not even a second thought for me. It's Zach Moss.
I will go with Elandon Roberts, inside linebacker. This is a guy who, since Cole Holcomb and Quan Alexander went down with season-ending injuries, has stepped into that full-time role. He's a guy I always liked. It's huge on him coming out of Houston in 2016. I thought he was very good in New England, had a solid run in Miami. Since he took on the full-time role for the Steelers, I think he's played some of his best football. He is a downhill thumper. That guy is going to set the tone. He's going to bring it every snap against a run. I think you might see a couple big collisions in the hole with him and Zach Moss. But I'm circling him because of the work in coverage that he has done in recent weeks. He is not known as the coverage linebacker. I mean, that's why they brought in Holcomb and Quan Alexander, because they wanted to take Roberts off the field in sub-package. Injuries have forced them to not do that now. And to Roberts' credit, he's stepped up and he's had some decent games in coverage. But I think this week, with the weapons on the outside that the Colts have and the attention that they're going to draw, Roberts is going to have to step up over the middle, especially in matchups against the tight ends. And if the Colts utilize the middle of the field, Roberts is going to have to be that guy to try and take some of that away. And if the Steelers want a shot at winning this game, I think Roberts has to come up big in coverage.
So we already saw Shaheen. His X factor was Juju Brents. Let's look at the chat here. Stats Matt saying it's Grover Stewart. Stop the run and put the Steelers behind the chains. I think that's going to be crucial, not to let the Steelers kind of just run the ball down the field. Patrick says his X factor is Matt Gay. Gets back in his groove and hits 3 field goals of 40 plus when the Colts get stopped by Watt and the rest. So some really good picks there. For me, it's Josh Downs. I think that is going to be the biggest mismatch for this Colts offense, is having Josh Downs in the slot. He hasn't had too big of games recently because it's been all about Michael Pittman, and deservedly so. Michael Pittman has just been absolutely dominating out there. But when you talk about the Colts wanting to get rid of the ball really quickly, and Josh Downs being matched up with Patrick Peterson inside, that quick win wide receiver, I think he might have hit the rookie wall just a little bit, but it could be where he gets back on track. Back at home, Josh Downs has typically played better at home this season as well. Seems like he's become more involved. I think Josh Downs could make a really big impact on Sunday, and we may see him hit that 100-yard mark as I think Michael Pittman will get getting 7 or 8 catches, but I think Josh Downs might lead the Colts in receiving yards.
And that reminds me too, the Colts are going to face a similar defense to what the Browns were with the Steelers. Like, those are not carbon copy. The Browns are 4-3, Steelers are 3-4, but you've got the elite pass rushers. You want to get the ball out quick. You got some physical corners, a defense decimated with injuries. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Downs kind of break out in that game against the Browns? He had a long touchdown after the catch, had some big catches downfield. That slot area, and that's kind of the Achilles heel right now for the Steelers, and I really think that's a significant matchup for the Colts. So, yeah, that's a good X factor for you, Andrew.
I think it's going to be a big game for number 1 on Saturday. Logan Schmidt says his is Zach Moss. He agrees with Drake, and CMDSR goes with Will Mallory. Will the Thrill. It's going to be fun. Going to be fun to see this all take place. All right, guys. Saturday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at Lucas Oil Stadium. Colts fans, Steelers fans always travel well. It's probably going to be close to 50-50 inside of Lucas Oil Stadium on Saturday afternoon. And whoever wins this game likely will make the playoffs in the AFC. I think we can almost guarantee that with the 2 schedules remaining and just how close everything is. Both these teams, 2 of 6 teams tied at 7-6 as we head into the final 4 weeks of the season, which is absurd. And to be doing it with backup quarterbacks, I think is even more impressive. So, Josh, we'll start with you, buddy. Colts, Steelers, Saturday afternoon. Who you got and why?
Oh, man.
Then give a score prediction as well.
Yeah, I've got the Colts 20, Steelers 19. I think they win it on a Matt Gay field goal. I have very, very little faith in Mitch Trubisky. I think scoring 19 points is going to be a significant task for the Steelers. I think they were going to probably need a defensive touchdown or a short field created on a turnover to put up 19 points. But I just think with this Colts team, you've got the makings on offense of stuff that gives the Steelers trouble defensively right now, and that's the run game, and that's the weapons on the outside that can win quick and allow your quarterback to get the football out. So I think Minshew's going to have a nice bounce-back game. I really think, again, Josh Downs is going to have a significant impact. I think Zach Moss is going to have a solid game. Jonathan Taylor, I think, rushed for 90 yards and a score last year. So, you can run on this Steelers team. And offensively for the Steelers, I really like that Colts front 7. And for me, it's hard for me to think, okay, Pittsburgh's going to be able to run the ball consistently against that front. And if they can't do that, you're putting the ball in Trubisky's hands. And again, I don't have a ton of faith. We know who he is at this point, and I don't feel good about it. And that's just kind of how the Steelers season has gone at this point. I mean, 2 weeks ago on the Saturday before the game against the Cardinals, the Steelers were 7-4 and had 2 matchups against 2-win teams coming up and thought, okay, 9-4 at best, 8-5 at worst. Nope, 7-6. Made history in the process, not the good kind. And, I think injuries are just catching up. And again, they don't have the play at the quarterback position to elevate this team. So 2019 Colts, I think the Colts are going to the playoffs this year. And I think the Steelers are going to be sitting at home again and having some tough decisions coming up as far as what the heck to do with this team.
That would be, I think there's going to be some interesting discussions made for the Steelers this off season, but hey, I'm not going to count the guys in black and gold out until that final bell. Drake, what do you think, bud? Colts, Steelers, who you got?
I regardless of Mitch Trubisky, regardless of the Steelers, current state of their roster, man, I believe in Mike Tomlin. I think that it doesn't matter who the hell you put in front of this guy. He just figures things out. I think that it's going to be 20. Let's see, what have I got here? Oh, yeah. 23-21. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be up. And I agree with you 100%, Josh and Andrew. You know that I made this prediction too, is that they are going to win on a Matt Gay field goal, because I think that Matt Gay played like dog crap last week, like the rest of the team. And I think that he's one of the best damn kickers in the league, and he's going to show it. And he's going to notch yet another game winner like he did in Baltimore.
You had us in the first half, Drake. Not gonna lie. I thought you were gonna say the Steelers were gonna win. The way
Nailed
he was
it.
going, he switched it up. Matt Gay with the field goal to win it.
It's like it's like that. What is it? That GIF where call the ambulance, but not for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's take a look at the chat stats. Matt has 24-20 Colts. Spooks Hill Joe with a blowout, 42-10.
Whoa.
That's-
Oh, man, that's
I
crazy.
listen,
Joe.
Joe.
If that
I
happens,
respected-
Crown
yeah,
get freaking Shane Steichen coach
Yeah,
of the year.
listen,
party.
if that score happens, Mike Tomlin might be left on the tarmac. All right.
Yeah, that's
that'd be
that's
wild.
crazy.
That would be wild. Patrick 22-13 Colts. CMD SR 31-27 Colts. A lot of higher scores in here, but hey, listen.
Oh.
I think it's going to be a close game. Like I said, Vegas only has it as 1.5 points. It's going to be a toss-up. Very tough environment. Playoff atmosphere in the beginning of December. I think both teams are treating this like a playoff game. It's a very just listening to the players in the Colts locker room this week, listening to what the Steelers players and the coaches had to say. Very serious. There is no joking around. They know how important this game is. For me, I think the Colts break the streak. It's been since 2008. Shane Steichen's going to come in here and get it done. I'm going Colts 24, Steelers 20. I think the Colts will score late, give themselves the lead, probably a touchdown from Gardner Minshew to Michael Pittman Jr. I'm calling it now. And then the Steelers are going to have one final drive where Mitch Trubisky is going to have to lead them down there for a touchdown. Lightning in the bottle is going to strike again, and Kenny Moore is going to get the game-sealing interception. So that's my big prediction. We're all on the Colts, so knowing that looks like the Steelers are probably going to get the victory since we're all on the Colts. Luckily, we don't have graphics to make us a meme, but hey, regardless, it's going to be a hell of a time in Indianapolis on Saturday afternoon between these two teams, an old-fashioned AFC bloodbath, and I can't wait as a football fan to watch these two teams go at it in prime time to determine which team is probably going to head into a wild card spot in the AFC. So that's our show for today, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in. I want to give a shout out to all of our super chats for this evening. Patrick Rye, the CFO, Logan Schmidt, Truitt, Shaheen, all of you guys. Thank you so much for all of your support, and everyone else that joined us live tonight in the chat. And then want to give a special shout out to our friend, colleague, Josh Carney. Is always welcome back on the show anytime to talk Colts Steelers, even Colts football with us. So before we head out here, Josh, tell the people where they can go check out all of your work on the Steelers.
Yeah, so you guys can find us on SteelersDepot.com. You can find me on Twitter right there at @ByJoshCarney. I don't tweet as much about the Colts anymore, just because the Steelers are 24/7 at this point. They are basically the NFL's Kardashians with the amount of drama that's going on currently. But Steelers Depot, we've got quite a team there, and we've got everything covered this week from Colts players and coaches' comments to everything going on with Ben Roethlisberger and the drama surrounding them. So I appreciate you guys having me on. Whenever you need me, just give me a call. Whatever happens here Saturday, hopefully, I can come back on, even if it's a Colts loss. But I think the streak ends. We wrote something here, I think this morning, 15 years in the making. The Steelers loss is 15 years in the making. So looking forward to Saturday. Had a great time chatting with you guys. Always good to see you, Andrew. Drake, it was great to virtually meet you. Got to say that here in the year 2023. And I'm just, like I said at the top, proud of everything you guys are doing with the site. It's come a long way since the pandemic creation. And you guys are kicking butt day after day and have really built a brand for yourself. So proud of you guys. Keep it up, man. And Andrew, congrats on all the success away from football, man. I'm happy for you. Can't wait to see you become a dad and really just take off with it. So keep up the great work, guys.
Well, I appreciate it, Josh. And Drake's becoming a dad in February, so we're both going to
Yeah.
be juggling newborns. So, hey, if you hear some crying in the background in some future episodes of the Horseshoe Huddle podcast, don't be alarmed. Just our newborns and our wives dealing with all of that. Right. So, and as Patrick Rye, the CFO, right on cue for open bars and lots of diapers and late night ice cream. That's why he's the man. That's why he is the absolute man. Thank you so much. Yeah, no Brandon Moses. I told him to come on tonight. He said my in-laws were in town. I said that should be an excuse to come and watch
precisely.
So
ridiculous.
But hey, really appreciate coming on, Josh. And anybody that if you want Steelers coverage, go check out Steelers Depot, the best in the business. Fantastic work that Josh and all of his colleagues do over there. Really, really good stuff. So before we exit here, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I go live, whenever Shad goes live with the Saddle Up Show, so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you're listening to us today, we're on there as well. So make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. As always, you guys know Drake, the hardest working man in Colts media, has been writing away on horseshoehuddle.com. Tell the people what they can go check out that you've written.
I did my 3 good and 3 bad in the loss against the Bengals. So if you want to see what the Colts are building off of or have to build off of, go check that out. And then my upcoming piece is going to be the 5 keys to defeating the Steelers. And I also kind of drummed the tight ends a little bit in one of my pieces on them on how they need to improve if the Colts want to make the playoffs.
Yeah, make sure you go check those out. For me, got a piece up on Michael Pittman Jr. He talked about the sense of urgency that this team has, and Shane Steichen also spoke about Michael Pittman and the ways they are using him in this offense and how Pittman has become so important to this team's success. So go check that out and all the other fantastic writings from our staff at horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. Follow Josh at by Josh Carney. And you can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, all on X. And we'll be back Monday night to break down what happens between the Colts and the Steelers. Should be an all-time classic. So until then, everyone, enjoy your weekend, enjoy the game, and we'll be back Monday night.